Sisters for parents, and so begins the first of the exodus.
Anneliese Michel entered the world on September 21, 1952, born into a typical Bavarian household in West Germany. Being devout Catholics, the Michels were in line with the majority of the population, as around 70% of the nearly 11 million residents adhered to Catholicism during that period. While Anneliese's family upheld strong religious convictions, they went beyond mere adherence, living by a stringent religious doctrine. Anneliese and her three sisters had to attend Catholic Mass twice a week, with their mother being especially insistent on prayer and religious devotion. This strict upbringing meant that Anneliese missed out on many typical childhood experiences, as her family placed a strong emphasis on their Catholic faith. The doctor Anneliese met with later concluded that she developed neuroses related to religious symbols and images due to the punishments she endured as a child. This diagnosis becomes significant later in the story. Despite the religiously strict environment at the Michel household, Anneliese was regarded as an excellent student by her friends. She excelled in language studies and was known for her public demeanor of happiness and playfulness. However, in her private life, Anneliese harbored inner turmoil. The religious oppression she experienced created a deep-seated emotional struggle within her. This unresolved pain from her family's religious dynamics would have lasting effects for years to come. Whether attributed to demonic possession or mental illness, Anneliese's condition gradually deteriorated over the years, worsening incrementally. During a school day in 1968, when Anneliese was 16 years old, she experienced an unexpected blackout. Witnesses reported that she entered a trance-like state during this first documented blackout. Anneliese herself claimed to have no memory of the event and insisted that she was fine afterward. Later that same night, Anneliese woke suddenly, feeling a heavy presence pressing down on her body, followed by bedwetting. Concerned about their daughter's well-being, her parents decided to keep her home from school the next day. However, there were no further incidents at that time. Initially, it appeared to be an isolated incident, and Anneliese reported feeling fine afterward. However, in August 1968, she experienced a similar episode, prompting her parents to take her to a local hospital for examination. Her primary care physician then referred her to a neurologist, Dr. Siegfried, who conducted a thorough examination and tests. Despite this, Dr. found no abnormalities in her brain function, and Anneliese appeared physically healthy. However, in February of 1970, Anneliese experienced a third event. Following a bout of tuberculosis that required months of hospitalization, she suffered another blackout accompanied by bedwetting. Anneliese became the subject of ridicule in the hospital ward where she stayed. Other patients mocked her for her bedwetting and blackouts, causing her to be ostracized. However, the worst was yet to come. The third blackout differed from the previous ones. After regaining consciousness, Anneliese reported experiencing vivid sensations, including seeing colors, hearing sounds, and feeling euphoric while praying with her rosary beads. Following this incident, she underwent further tests with a second neurologist, Dr. von Haller, who diagnosed her with epilepsy and prescribed medication. However, despite this diagnosis, Anneliese's condition continued to deteriorate. Anneliese eventually returned to school later in 1970, but she had undergone a significant transformation. Her friends noticed a change in her demeanor, describing her as depressed and withdrawn, with a noticeable darkness about her. Rumors began circulating about her, with people talking behind her back. What caused this change in personality? Was it the shame stemming from repeated blackouts and bedwetting episodes? Or perhaps it was the experience of being ostracized and ridiculed during her hospital stay? No, it wasn't the shame or ridicule that caused the change. Rather, it was her seizures, which began happening more frequently. Despite this, her doctors couldn't pinpoint the underlying cause of the seizures, adding to her family's frustration. Despite her struggles, Anneliese persevered. She sought solace in religion, immersing herself in the study of Catholicism while completing high school. In 1973, she further pursued her academic goals by enrolling at the University of Würzburg with the intention of becoming a teacher. Despite adhering to her medication regimen, Anneliese's condition continued to deteriorate. By mid-1973, she began experiencing hallucinations while praying and developed a belief that she was damned. Consumed by the idea that the devil was inside her, she became obsessed with this notion. Anneliese sought solace through fervent prayer, often crying herself to sleep while clutching her rosary beads. In her quest to rid herself of what she perceived as a demonic presence, Anneliese incorporated regular visits to a priest into her routine alongside her standard medical appointments. By late 1973, Anneliese's strange behavior became completely unpredictable. She was evidently being driven crazy by whatever darkness had taken hold of her. To make things even worse, her erratic and unpredictable symptoms kicked into overdrive. Finally, her parents had to confront her. They informed her that they had no other choice but to pull her out of college. From that point on, she was confined to her bedroom under a literal house arrest. It was during this time she started taking Tegretol, an anti-seizure drug, and mood stabilizer. Also during this period, Anneliese reported hearing a strange knocking in her bedroom. Her sisters confirmed that they heard the knocking as well. She also claimed to hear a voice that would regularly damn her to hell. Despite dutifully taking her daily cocktail of neuroleptic medications, Anneliese's symptoms worsened in a terrifying and unexplainable way. She started growling like an animal. She saw demons. She exhibited Hulk-like strength. During one episode, Anneliese began throwing her sister around the house like a rag doll. At one point, after arguing with her parents, she urinated on the floor, then got down on all fours, and lapped it up like a dog. She would regularly chuckle, rip her clothes off, and eat insects she found around the house. She was angry, irrational, and almost completely unreachable by her family members. To make things even more frightening, religious objects like crucifixes and holy water drove her mad. Her mother recalled an incident where she caught Anneliese staring at a framed portrait of the Virgin Mary and that her daughter's eyeballs were 100% jet black. The Michel family began to realize they might be seeing the symptoms of what the Catholic Church might consider a demonic possession. Anneliese's family eventually asked several local priests for an exorcism, but the men declined and encouraged Michel to continue with the traditional medical treatment she was already receiving. Despite what you see in the movies, it isn't that easy to get an exorcism. A Catholic exorcism requires the permission of a bishop, which the Michel family could not seem to arrange. Sometime in 1973, Michels met Father Ernst Alt, a local priest who, upon meeting Anneliese, almost immediately said she didn't look like an epileptic and claimed she wasn't suffering from seizures. Father Alt was convinced Anneliese was possessed by demons and was able to get the attention of the local bishop about what was happening to Anneliese and her family. Archbishop Joseph Stengel eventually granted Father Arnold Wrench permission to exorcise Anneliese in compliance with the Ritual Romanum of 1614, but with a very important caveat. The exorcism was to be performed in complete secrecy. Father Renz performed Anneliese's first exorcism with Father Alt assisting on September 24, 1975. During the rite, she reportedly began talking about dying to atone for the wayward youth of the day and the apostate priests of the modern church. Eventually, she stopped eating, saying she was no longer allowed to. At this point, Anneliese's parents had given up consulting doctors and cut off her medication. Instead, they put all their faith in the Catholic rites of exorcism. And Anneliese was subjected to 67 exorcisms in all, over an 11-month span during 1975 and 1976. It wasn't unusual for Anneliese to endure 2 sessions a week, with some exorcism sessions lasting up to 4 hours. In audio recordings from these sessions, one can clearly hear Anneliese's distorted, guttural voice. She growls like a wild beast, and makes profane utterances in response to the religious ritual.
Aber das Ding, das gäbe Sachen, die Drecksau, das haben die hineingepflanzt. Ja, ja!
The gruesome audio recordings during her exorcisms also reveal that fathers Renz and Alt talked to 6 spirits allegedly possessing Anneliese. These spirits, or personalities, if that's what they were, made up a murderous row of evil incarnate. Lucifer, Judas Iscariot, Nero, Cain, Hitler, and Valentine Fleischmann, a disgraced Frankish priest from the 16th century. Given Anneliese's history with religion and her obsession with Christian teachings, there were later theories that Anneliese chose these figures intentionally. It's almost impossible not to agree. Despite being not much more than skin and bones, Anneliese had to be physically restrained and held down while her exorcisms took place. This abuse, along with the lack of medical treatment and food or water, took a toll on her body. Anneliese Michel died at her home on July 1, 1976. Her death certificate stated that Anneliese ultimately died of malnutrition and dehydration. Her autopsy, however, revealed broken teeth, blackened eyes, and bruises on her hands, arms, and wrists. She also had broken knees and numerous other wounds on her body. Fathers Alt and Renz, as well as Anneliese's parents, were put on trial for negligent homicide in 1978. During the trial, the priests boldly maintained the exorcisms were successful and had liberated Anneliese from the demons possessing her. Father Alt even insisted that some of the wounds documented by Anneliese's autopsy were the stigmata, corresponding to the divine wounds suffered by Jesus Christ as a result of his crucifixion. The evidence apparently didn't line up, and the story of Anneliese's alleged demonic possession wasn't enough to sway the German court's 3-judge panel. All of the defendants in the case were found guilty, but their sentences varied. Fathers Alt and Renz were charged with manslaughter and given 6 months in prison with suspended sentences. Anneliese's parents received no punishment at all, as the German legal system deemed that they had experienced enough suffering.